I went to Alaska to go play, and 2 weeks up there, the Mets called me up, and Bob Miner goes, "We didn't draft enough guys. You want to sign for $500 and come play pro ball?" And I said, "Well, can I give you an answer tomorrow?" And he goes, "Yeah, you want to talk to your parents?" And I said, "No, I'll call you tomorrow and tell you yes. I'm just starting tonight. I don't want this over my head."
This week, I'm honored to be joined by three-time MLB All-Star, one of baseball's best ever closers, and a guy with a phenomenal personality, Heath Bell.
In the minor leagues, I didn't have much money, and my parents didn't have a whole lot. In the off season, I found a UPS job, graveyard. I wanted a job in the middle of the night so I could, train in the afternoon. And Tim Foley not giving up on me. Foley came to me the last day of camp. He goes, "Don't make me look like a fool." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I stuck my neck out for you because I think there's a future in you." I said, "Okay, thank you. Like, kind of, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, the Mets have a policy. We go around the table once a week and say, hey, should we release this kid or should we keep him? And if one person raises their hand, we'll keep him one more week." And he goes, "I had to raise my hand every week of spring training for you."
Having that relationship with the Lord, I know you talked a lot about when he spoke to you and he told you that you were good enough as a pitcher. When some other people were caught up in you doing the slide into the mound at the All-Star game, they were really focusing on your pitching skills.
I never prayed, "God, thank you for letting me have a great outing." You should pray that, "Thank you, Lord, for giving me the opportunity to play this game." So I played Little League. Tried to make travel ball. It wasn't good enough to try out for a travel ball team back then. There really was no daddy ball teams at the time. And, went to high school. I was on the freshman team. The next year on the freshman team as a sophomore, there was like 3 sophomores. Then the next year they're like, you can play varsity and sit the bench, or you can be on JV and play. I'm like, well, I haven't played in 2 years. I want to play. That's why I picked JV. And that year I had incredible numbers. I was hitting still at the time. I was hitting 500.
Wow.
I know it's JV. It was like 480 or something, but, they called up 2 freshmen to the varsity team for playoffs, and I didn't get called up. And I was kind of disappointed. Finally made the varsity team my senior year because I had to be, and we have 4 tournaments in the first 4 weekends. So we needed 4 starters, and I was the only one 4-0 out of our whole team. So it was almost like the head coach had to play me because I was just doing well.
Yeah.
And I led the Orange County of California in ERA, and out of the top 10 guys, I was the only one throwing below, 82 miles an hour because I topped out at 82, 83 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Everybody else was throwing 90 and possibly getting drafted, going to big name schools, and I had no schools interested in me, and I was kind of like disappointed, and I was upset, and because I always felt like I was going to get to the big leagues, and never thought I was going to be a huge star or anything like that. I just thought I was going to get to the big leagues, and that was my dream. And but after high school, I was like, there was no colleges, this and that, and I told my dad, I said, I want to enlist like you into the military, into the Marines. Yeah. And he goes, "You know what? Let's go have breakfast tomorrow morning." So we went and had breakfast, and he talked me out of it. And he goes, "Just go to the local junior college, try out. If you don't make the team, let's go enlist." So I was like, okay, because he actually didn't finish high school and enlisted in the Marines and ended up having 4 kids, and I'm the baby of 4. Basically, he was a mechanic, the majority of his life. But then I go to community college and do really well my freshman year. I don't start a single game. I just came out of the bullpen, but I had more innings than any starter. So figure that one out. There were some games I'd come in the 4th inning and finish the game. A day off for me was a guy, something Ward in our college team. He would normally pitch 7 innings. He was like our best starter. And I was like, wow, I only have to pitch 2 innings today. This is going to be easy. So those were the easy days. And we were like 47-5 over the whole season. And we got hosed on the last game right before the championship. So we didn't win the Community College World Series. But we had a filthy record that year as a freshman. And I got an opportunity. The Phillies called me up and said, we were thinking about drafting in the 21st round. Are you going to sign? And I said, well, how much do you have? Or are you going to offer? And they said $1,000. And I said, well, I'm probably not going to sign for $1,000. Are you going to still draft me? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, the reason I want to go is because nobody in my family is finished, has a degree.
Yeah.
And my dad never went to, he got his GED later in life, but didn't finish high school. And, he was hoping one of his kids would do better than him.
Yeah.
And, especially education wise. And so I said, at least get one more year and I can get an associate's degree. It's not much, but at least it's a degree and I can say I got something. And the scout said, that's probably the right decision. I said, okay. They didn't draft me. I was kind of bummed. Then the Rays drafted me the 69th round as a draft and follow. And I said, well, are you guys going to offer me anything? And they said, no, we have your rights for until the next year, basically the next 10 months. We can sign you within the next 10 months.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. And they don't do draft and follows anymore. They stopped it I think 15 years ago or 20 years ago, because you could draft and follow as many guys as you wanted.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this guy has potential, so I'll draft and follow him, and then if he has a good college year right before the draft, I'll just sign him.
Yeah.
So I think other clubs were like, this is not good. It was a good idea, but other clubs took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So then the next year I had a pretty good year, not as good as my freshman year, but still a good year because I started games and relieved games. So I kind of I had a bigger workload. And, here, go back to college. So I walked on to college as basically a catcher / pitcher. And because I was just trying to make the team. And I caught a lot of bullpens my freshman year. Halfway through the season, I was like, Coach, can I not catch bullpens anymore? Because I'm just tired. Because I'd catch bullpens and then throw a bullpen, or I'd throw my bullpen and then catch everybody's bullpen. And I was like, man, and I never got to play. I got to play one game. And then, so my sophomore year, I've had a good year. And then I had the Rockies, Mets, and Oakland all call me up and say, hey, what's it going to take you to get drafted? And I said, I have no money. I'll sign. Because I was so upset. Maybe I missed my opportunity, with the Phillies the year before. Because people said you should have said yes and then made the decision. I'm like, well, I'm an honest guy,
Yeah.
So like I said, nice guys finish last. It kind of sucks. But anyway, after my freshman year, I got a full ride to Cal State Fullerton to finish my college career, for my junior and senior year. They actually told me on my recruiting trip after my freshman year that they were interested in me in high school, but they talked to my coach, and my coach said that he's not ready for a 4-year school. And I had no idea of this. And they said, yeah, you didn't throw hard, but you got everybody out. And it was just like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we came and watched it, and his coach was like, no, he's not ready. Well, anyway, in junior college, I was throwing 86 to 88, but here's the thing. Everybody asks, well, what happened to velocity? You're throwing 82 to 83, then mid 80s. I said, well, in high school, we weren't allowed to work out because the coach thought if we lifted weights, we would get too strong and we wouldn't be flexible. And you have to be flexible, especially to play baseball or especially to pitch.
Yeah.
So we never worked out. And then in college, they were like, you need to go to the gym and work out. I'm like, okay. Still had no idea. I just lifted weights. I had no idea what I was doing. So I think I just started lifting and I got stronger, right?
Yeah.
But, and, getting a little bit older, that, adult strength, I guess you'd call it, man strength.
Yeah.
So anyway, after those 3 teams asked me what it would take, first day I didn't get drafted, second day I get drafted, third day I didn't get drafted. I'm all upset and bummed out. My sister Heather actually made me call and ask him why. So I had a good conversation with Bob Miner. That's actually a really good friend now that was I think he just retired from scouting with the New York Mets. And he gave me some BS line of like, well, there's not a whole lot of future in you. You're good, but we don't see you getting any better. Basically, you're a fat kid that throws strikes and we don't see a future. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, I was always a bigger kid, but it's funny because they were like, you need to be tall and skinny. Yeah. Tall and skinny as a pitcher. He goes, well, if you could play, you could be a non-drafted free agent. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. So I went to Alaska to go play because I had an opportunity to go play in Alaska or Cape Cod. And I'm like, I want to go see Alaska. So I went to play collegiate ball up there, and 2 weeks up there, the Mets called me up, and Bob Miner goes, "Hey, we didn't draft enough guys. We only have 14 guys going to rookie ball, and you need 25. You want to sign for $500 and come play pro ball?" And I said, "Well, can I give you an answer tomorrow?" And he goes, "Yeah, you want to talk to your parents?" And I said, "No, I'll call you tomorrow and tell you yes. I'm just starting tonight. I want this over my head." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "What time do you wake up?" He goes, 8 o'clock. So I called him at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. And I actually woke him up. He was in bed. And he goes, "I didn't think you were being realist, like, like exactly 8 o'clock." I'm like, "Well, I told you I'd call you when you woke up." Once again, me being too honest. And anyway, so he flew me from Alaska to Kingsport, Tennessee, rookie ball, and signed my contract literally 40 minutes before I pitched in my first game.
Wow.
And yeah, 8 more years, got to the big leagues. But yeah, it's kind of the story of me getting into pro ball.
That's a crazy, but I appreciate all the detail in that story.
Hey, Mom.
Hi.
My mom in the background.
Just that level of determination just to keep going. And I was reading something that Tim Foley, one of your coaches too, when you first joined, he said, "Don't let me look like a fool," like to paraphrase. He was like, basically like, "Don't prove me wrong," that he took a chance on you when you were coming in. And to have 8 years in the minors, signing for $500. And I heard you tell about stories that you're also working graveyard shifts at UPS at the same time you're working at Costco.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
just,
So in the
yeah,
off season in the minor
yeah,
leagues, I didn't have much money and my parents didn't have a whole lot. I would work graveyard shift because in college I worked at a shipping yard graveyard, and when the season wasn't on, to pay my way through college, and my parents helped out a little bit.
mm-hmm.
And then in the off season, I found a UPS job graveyard, and then Costco during the day, and did that for like 3 months of the 4 or 5 months off season, and then took a month off to really train. I wanted a job in the middle of the night so I could train in the afternoon. So yeah, it was and Tim Foley not giving up on me. That little tidbit. It was after my rookie ball season.
Mm-hmm.
I go to spring training, and there's 11 of us non-drafted free agents, and we're kind of like became friends, right?
Yeah.
We're this little clique, and 2 weeks before the season's getting ready to start, the end of spring training, we started dropping like flies. I mean, we had a little guy playing second base. I forget his name, drawing blank right now. He was hitting like 500 in spring training. They released him, second baseman. And I'm like, wow. Like, because he was a non-draft free agent. They didn't see, a future.
Yeah.
And they kept me, and I was the only one out of the 11. And at the last, I'm just like praying every day, every Tuesday was cut day. And you go hide, every Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, the coaches couldn't find you if they were going to cut you, and you're just pretty, they'd end up finding you. And then Foley came to me the last day of camp and told me, he goes, "Don't make me look like a fool." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I stuck my neck out for you because I think there's a future in you."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, thank you. Like, kind of, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, the Mets have a policy. We go around the table once a week and say, hey, should we release this kid or should we keep him? And if one person raises their hand, we'll keep him one more week." That's kind of the motto, like all the coaches, the 7 or 8 coaches that they had. And he goes, "I had to raise my hand every week of spring training for you."
Wow.
And I was like, "So everybody wanted to cut me?" He goes, "No, people just don't see a future in you." And he goes, "I think you have something." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Don't make me look like a fool." Well, the next year I won a bunch of records. I broke like 2 records as in rookie ball, but it's rookie ball and short, and then I go to high A, long season A rather, but low A. And then I break like a 30-year-old record. And the funny part is I had more saves and a better ERA than every closer in the top 5 of the league. The only one that didn't go to the All-Star game. But then again, we had 5 guys go to the All-Star game because I played with like 2 first rounders and a second rounder and third rounder and, like a top prospect. So it was almost like, well, if you get money, you're a high draft pick, you're going to go to the All-Star game. It's not who really deserves it,
Yeah.
right? And the next year I came back and everybody was like, in spring training my next year, said, you had a good season. You got to do it again, whatnot. Well, that season I came back, did not know this in spring training, but I was blowing 96 to 99 miles an hour. And I thought I was just having a good spring training because I used to strike a guy out or a guy and a half out, maybe two guys per inning. And I remember Willie Suggs coming to me like it was a second rounder in rookie ball. He goes, how is it? I throw 96 miles an hour. I threw 6 innings and I struck one guy out. And last night I was in the stands, radar gun. You didn't throw anything over 87. You struck all 3 out. How the hell can you do that? And I said, well, I throw all my pitches for strikes, man. And then I said, well, let me watch you. I'll pay attention. And that kind of got me going in rookie ball of like understanding a lot of guys, they get drafted, have a great arm, have a great curveball, but can't throw it for a strike. Can throw 98 miles an hour, but don't have anything else. Can't throw a curveball for a strike, but can just throw a fastball, or can throw it 98 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour, but have no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't do that in high school, not throwing hard. And then in college was the same way, where, I had to hit my spots. I had to hit, I used to joke around and say, the reason I got to the big leagues and the reason I was so good is because I could hit a fly's ass. You put it on the catcher's mitt or shoulder and I could knock that fly off.
Yeah.
But I used to practice throwing bullpens. I used to have a tee and a bucket of balls. And I would put the ball on the tee like a hitter, go to the mound, and then try to knock the ball off the tee. As soon as I knock it off, go walk down there, put another ball on the tee, and then throw balls until I knocked it off. That's how I used to throw bullpens in high school. I never had a catcher. Wow. So I had to hit my spots. I had to, otherwise I wasn't gonna be well. I wasn't gonna do well because I didn't have a fastball or great stuff. And when I came back in my second spring training and started throwing hard, I didn't know I was throwing hard because here's the thing. We used to joke around with because there was only a few college guys in rookie ball and the rest were from high school getting drafted. And the guys would be like, I throw 98 miles an hour. Like, no, you throw 94, 95. You top out at 96, or 98. You don't pitch there. Because, when you get in college, it's like you don't throw 98, you throw 96. You can hit 98, but you sit at 95, 96. You don't pitch that. You have to be a pitcher. You can't be a thrower. In high school, you can just throw and get people out. So we used to tease them like, oh, we're playing so-and-so that got drafted, he's second overall pick last year and he legitimately throws 98. And it's like, oh, I'm going to throw 100, certain high school guys. So we used to just tease them. So that spring training, they used to, Heath, you're throwing like 97. I was like, okay, just walk off. Like, you're not going to get me because you're trying to prank me or something, right? Just didn't believe anybody. But I felt like I was having a good spring training, because even me throwing 86 to 88, occasionally if the wind was behind me, throwing it 90 miles an hour, I would strike guys out because I knew how to pitch.
Yeah.
And so that spring training, I didn't believe them. And then the season started and I looked up at the scoreboard and it said 98. And I'm like, is that wrong? And everybody that year, people were doing steroids at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not really going to get into that, but everybody asked me what I was doing. Like, dude, what are you doing? Because all of a sudden I graced 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I said, I did nothing. Louis Natero, our hitting coach, came to me my second year of pro ball at the last week. And Mickey Weston was our pitching coach. And Louis comes to me and goes, hey, I think you can throw harder. I'm a pitching coach during winter ball. And I said, okay, well, and he showed me a couple things. He goes, work on these exercises and work on this off season. And next year you can come back and I'm pretty sure you'll throw harder. I didn't think he'd think I'd throw 10 miles an hour harder, but so all off season, that's what I worked on. And I came back and throwing 10 miles an hour harder. So I was throwing in the mid to upper 90s. Wow. And nobody believed me. It was the first time I met the major league GM, came down and asked me and said, you're not going to get in trouble. I'm just going to help you out. And I said I wasn't doing anything. I talked to Louis Notaro, and the funny part is Louis still works for the Mets to this day.
Wow.
So I think I'm probably one of the reasons that he does. I mean, he's a great coach, great Dominican coach. But yeah, it was basically learning my body, learning my mechanics, and putting everything in max effort and then practicing max effort instead of just practicing, but then also practicing max effort but slow.
Yeah.
And then when you go fast, it's right there. It's easy. So I was like, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. It makes sense to me too. Yeah.
So that's kind of I don't know where we're going with that, but
no, I kind of want to transition to something I heard you talk about with kids, especially today, how when they're growing up and they're playing ball, they're just kind of like robots. Like they have no idea how to actually train for themselves.
Well, here's the thing. Nowadays, coaches tell the players what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, shift over here, shift over there. Okay, do this, or I'm going to call all the pitches, right? And that's to help the team win and all that. That's great.
Yeah.
But the kids don't understand, why am I throwing a curveball? Why am I throwing a fastball? Why am I throwing in here? Why am I throwing away? Because coaches aren't going to explain that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm coaching high school and now a little bit of college here, and trying to get a head coaching job, but everybody's threatening that even a pitching coaching job, nobody wants to hire me because it seems like the head coach is too threatened that I know more than him.
That's ridiculous.
And trust me, I've had this, Baylor did that to me, and another school in Austin did that to me, and a high school, same thing. It's like, they're just like, well, I really get the final answer. And they're just like, well, people are intimidated from you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just because I know more? Like, anyway. So what I've learned is kids they don't watch now and go, man, like I remember back in the day, I'd be like, man, I'm going to strike Barry Bonds out or Mark McGuire out, and I'm going to throw him a curveball this, or I'm going to throw a fastball up and in. Even when I was throwing 80 miles an hour, I feel like I throw by him, right?
Yeah.
And now I think kids aren't going, well, this is how I'd pitch to Mike Trout, or this is how I'd face, Justin Verlander or DeGrom or whoever, Cole. Yeah. This is how I'd hit a home run off him. I'd take his fastball, this or slider or whatever it is. They don't do that. I have to throw hard. If you watch TikTok, you watch Instagram, you watch those guys throwing, 98 miles an hour or 92 miles an hour. They're never throwing a strike. Mm-hmm. Think about it.
Yeah,
they're running back and they're throwing. I'm like, great, you should be an outfielder.
Yeah. Or
they throw it on the mound and they throw really hard, but they're never throwing a strike. Yeah. Like I love that one guy on social media. I forget which one it is, and somebody throws like 98 and he goes, ball.
Oh, I
because
love that
it's
guy.
True. Because everybody does that. Everybody throws a ball. Yeah. And I'm like, that's genius. Because I've been saying that for a while. Like, that's a ball. Who cares you throw 100 miles an hour? Who cares you throw 86 or 96 or whatever? Yeah. It's a ball. You still can't get anybody out. Yeah. And then, so what I've learned is, like coaching, I coach differently than every other coach. I say, look, and I tell players that, look, I'm going to coach the right way, but it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And you're going to get frustrated at times. Mm-hmm. And they learn after a while, but after a month of coaching the kids, they're the smartest kids, the baseball knowledge, when to take that extra base. Yeah. Hey, do you know why he was pitching you in? And he's like, well, no, I was waiting for a pitch to go the other way, because there's a runner on second. Yeah, because that situation, the pitcher knows, or whoever's calling, the catcher, whoever's calling it knows that you're trying to hit the ball the other way. So what's he going to do? Throw the ball outside corner or bust you in? And he goes, but shouldn't I take the ball that way? And I go, yeah, but I wouldn't get mad if you pulled the ball and got a hit. And he was like, oh, and they start thinking. I'm like, okay, you guys are going to make mistakes, but it's okay. But let's learn from our mistakes. Mm-hmm. And some of the kids have a trouble doing that because their whole life, ever since Little League, has been told, basically, listen to me and I'll make you a great player. Yeah. My thing is, I'm not always going to be your coach. I want you when your high school season, your college season starts, you can always give me a phone call. And I'm very fortunate. I'm pretty proud of this one kid that just got drafted in the 14th round with the Cardinals. He was struggling. He called me, and I said, send me some video, and we talked, and we kind of broke his mechanics down, and all of a sudden he started throwing from 88 to 98. But he could throw in the low 90s, but all of a sudden he couldn't.
Yeah.
So, and it was just mechanically, but he was a couple states away, and I helped him out. And then, but here's my point is, I say, look, I'm not always going to be there. You have to learn these things. I'm going to teach you these things, but if you don't go home and do it, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I want you to perform. So like, Jacob Odell is the kid's name, that's with the Cardinals organization. Mm-hmm. Well, I helped him out. I gave him some knowledge and said, here, do this or try this or, blah, blah, blah. But he's the one who did it. He's the one who got drafted because of all of his hard work. I'm not taking any credit. I gave him suggestions. It's kind of like, if you want to do a great podcast, well, spend 8 hours a day doing your podcast. Now, it doesn't mean talking on the, podcast for 8 hours. It means take it seriously. Work 40 hours a week on your podcast, doing your homework, blah, 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 the X, Y, and Z. You'll do great. Now you could be like, yeah, that's great knowledge. That's awesome. Are you actually going to use that knowledge? Are you going to do that? And Jacob Odell went and did it. So he gets all the credit, not me. I just suggested things that he could have read in a book, but I just helped him out a little bit and said it verbally because I coached him years ago when he was a teenager. And, but he put in the work because we've all heard things. I've even heard things. Hey, if you do this, you'll probably have success. Right. Yeah. And then you just get lazy and other things get, like you even said, baseball was something that you really wanted to do, but your dad said you were good, but you just kind of like didn't try as hard and you kind of regret it.
Yeah.
Well, other things were more important at the time.
Yeah.
And for me, nothing was more important than me getting to the big leagues. That was my number one thing. And that's what happens with a lot of kids now. There's a lot of talent. Are you willing to sacrifice today to get what you want tomorrow? Or do you want it today? And you'll say, well, I'll sacrifice tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. We'll get, here's the truth and reality. Tomorrow never comes. Mm-hmm. It never does. Because you wake up today, and then tomorrow you'll wake up today. You never wake up tomorrow. Because tomorrow's always in the future. And like yesterday's always in the past. So why dwell about what happened in the past? Because you can't change it.
Yeah.
So where today kids, they tell me when to steal. Guys, I tell them, this is when you need to steal. This is the count that you need to steal. Pay attention when you're in the dugout because 80% of the time they pick on the second pitch. So why not steal on the first pitch?
Yeah.
And I had one player come to me and goes, well, I'm trying to get his timing. I go, okay, you bat 6 in the lineup. You just saw 5 guys in front of you. You're telling me you didn't get any timing in the dugout? That means you weren't paying attention in the game when you were not in the game. The only time you pay attention is when you're between the lines. Yeah. And I'd say some other things like, do you watch the game? Well, yeah. And I would basically talk to him to show him that he's not watching the game. He's not trying to get better. You can watch a game on TV and you can get better just by watching a game on TV. Or you can watch for pure entertainment. If you're in the dugout playing a game, you can watch your teammates and hope they do really well, or you can try to learn something so then when you get up there, you're actually prepared and you already had 4 or 5 at-bats in front of you that you never were in the box yet.
Yeah.
And I go, that's how I see things. I just see things differently. And I try to teach kids to see those things. And a lot of them do. It takes a while for some. But then as soon as they see it, you just see their game raise, and all of a sudden they just do really well. And I love to see the kids, especially in high school, that nobody thought was any good. I mean, I had this one kid, his junior year, I had him during the summer, and the varsity coach, I was telling him, and he's like, yeah, I just don't see, he might be just a pitcher, not really play position. And I just said, hey, just give the kid a chance. It's up to you to make a decision. And I said, here's the thing. He was our best pitcher because he threw sideways. Didn't throw hard. I said he was our most consistent pitcher. And I said, the first tournament we played, our shortstop didn't show up. And I asked him, hey, where do you play? And he goes, I played middle infield, So
Yeah.
I put him there. I said, he hit the highest on the team all summer, and he was our utility guy. And he doesn't have power. He's like, well, where's he going to hit? Because my son's team had a really good team
Yeah.
his senior year. They ended up winning the state in Texas, first time ever. And
Wow.
and I said, I don't know. But all I'm saying is give the kid a chance. Just have an open mind. Let him play in the, fall, fall season. And if he doesn't impress you, he doesn't impress you. I'm just saying keep an open mind because the coach literally already had that he's not going to play the position, right? He's only a pitcher. He ended up being the starting right fielder for the team and the third or fourth pitcher on the team. They had two really good starters, and then they had one good reliever, and then he was the second best reliever they had. But it's funny. I don't think if I would have went to the coach and if I'd never said anything to the coach, because I coached like 6 of their players, and he would call me and ask me about the players.
Yeah.
And there's just one I said, just don't label this kid. His name was Ty. I said, don't label Ty. Just give him a chance. Just let him hit, let him fail, let him pitch. Don't just say, oh, he's a PO and he can't play position.
Yeah.
Because his junior year, they actually put him on JV because they didn't see him as a middle infielder. He was a shortstop. And he's not a shortstop. At best, he's a second baseman, I would think, or he could play the outfield. He's probably, that's kind of where I see him. Like if he ever got to the big leagues, he'd probably be a second baseman, outfielder, maybe a right-hand specialist pitcher or something like that. Because he throws from down, like sidewinder, like Chad Bradford back in the day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and all of a sudden he just gave him, a chance, and he became the starting right fielder to, high school state championship team. It was funny. He batted like 7th or 8th on the team, and I think he hit 300. He didn't have any power, but he got on base, and I'm telling you, I taught him. He knew how to steal, but he was that little kid from little league that would just run until they tag you.
Yeah.
Everybody'd make errors, but in high school they don't make as many errors as they do in little league. So I kind of told him to tone it down a little bit and kind of taught him when to take off and when to take that extra base and be aggressive and make the defense make errors. And he ran all over the place, and he won some games for him because of his legs. Because he just first he would score from first all the time because he would just take off, and teach them how. Because a lot of kids don't do this. At first base the ball's hit to center field, right?
Yeah.
When do you pick up the third base coach? If the ball's in front of you, you don't pick up the third base coach. You make that decision. Mm-hmm. But if the ball's hit behind you, you don't turn your head. You pick them up right away.
Yeah.
And you have to pay attention. Who's got the arm? Who doesn't have the arm? Is it in the gap? Does the outfielder is he coming straight to the ball, or is he fielding the ball of his glove side or his throwing side? That all makes difference. If it's glove side, then you have a half second or a second to take an extra step. If it's arm side, he's going to get to his arm quicker and throw the ball in. So I started teaching these kids that, and all of a sudden he just took off. Now he's playing at I think West Texas A&M in college.
Wow.
So it's just it's fun to watch these kids develop and do really well, and that's why I love coaching high school and college, because you can make an average player into a great player if he wants it.
Yeah.
Pro ball, it's almost like, well, I was drafted and I got this much money, I can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but do you want to, in pro ball, you probably get like one kid that really wants to get to the big leagues, but the organization could see like, well, we don't see a future in him, so we're not going to spend any time with him. It's all about prospects in pro ball. That's why I like high school and college a lot better. But that's why if anybody's out there and ain't listening to me, I want a job. I want like a legit job, but not a volunteer job. That I've been doing a lot of volunteer the last couple of years, and I'm tired of summer ball. I'll still do it a little bit for the college level, but I love teaching. I love giving back. My kid's off in college now, so it's like, okay, now I'm kind of, my youngest son plays tennis like mom. I can hit the ball around, but I can't teach tennis. So
I just think it's so weird that coaches would straight up say to you that they don't want you on their staff. And
I think what happens is like people will find out that he knows more, and they're going to want him as the head coach. He's going to take my job.
this just sounds like such an ego thing that
Oh,
your
there's a lot
horrendous
of ego
development of
in
children.
high school and college. Tell me about it.
I know, and
It's a lot of ego. It's a lot of ego. Like, well, I played at this high school or I played at this college. I know what it's like.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I played against the best in the world. So apparently I don't know what high school and college is like.
I know that blows my mind. That I can't imagine anyone more qualified. If you're going to be a pitching coach, who's more qualified than someone who was the top reliever in the league for 3 years straight,
I
pretty much?
think people have a fear of what they don't know. Because think
Yeah,
about it. If you're a head coach and you think you can teach pitchers and you're pretty good, and then you get a pitching coach like me, what if I go, no, that's not what they should do? Because I'm telling you, I would tell you about 90% of high school coaches and college coaches take success over a kid does really well that they did not help. I mean, I'm telling you, a
yeah. I
kid
believe
that
you. I believe you. Yeah.
shows up and just does well, and he's like, well, I don't want you to throw from here, but then they throw from here and they do well, and they're like, yeah, you didn't teach them.
Yeah.
And then I'm telling you, I would say 99% of coaches go, well, it's because I'm calling every pitch. I know
Yeah.
when to throw a curveball. I know when to throw a fastball. Okay. But we're giving signs because we want pickoffs and stuff like that. But the pitcher should have every right to call off pitches.
Yeah.
But if they call off a fastball and they want to throw a curve and the guy hits a 500-foot shot, you got to answer to that.
Yeah.
And I've done that with kids before. And, I've said, hey, why'd you throw this? Well, I thought I could throw a fastball by him. And I said, okay, well, did you throw that fastball where you wanted? Where did you want the fastball? He's like, down and away or wherever. Did you throw it down and away? He goes, no, I left it over the middle. And I go, okay. So here's the thing. When you're going to shake me off, hit your spots.
Yeah.
And they start learning, like I'll give you an example. My son was in high school and we went pretty far. We didn't make it to the Little League World Series, but we got almost there.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I only coached Little League 1 year. It was my first year retired. And it was in 16. I think it was 16. And anyway, all the kids wanted me to be the head coach. And then there was politics. And anyway, I wasn't the head coach. And then the head coach he goes, you could be the pitching coach. So I'm like, okay, my kid wanted me to do it. So I said, okay. And we called every pitch, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that. But I most of the pitchers knew, you want to shake some off? Go ahead. Let's talk. After every inning, I'd say, okay, how do you feel, your curveball, or how do you feel is your fastball or your changeup? Do you feel like you're throwing away good? Do you feel like you're throwing in good? So to learn what is good for him, to help me call pitches. So it's almost like he knows what he's going to call,
Yeah.
and I'm just helping him out, right? And the coaches came to me after the first month, and we were just dealing. Our pitchers were filthy. Our main pitcher I had all season, and then another pitcher, and our catcher was just filthy too. And they came to me and goes, well, this team's really good. We got a scouting report. And I just looked at him, where do you get these scouting reports from? Well, I know coaches from other leagues and this and that. Do you want to see it? And I go, no, I got my own scouting report. And then 5 innings, we had 1 hit, just dominated again. One of the coaches goes, Heath, where do you get your scouting report? And I go, just point it over there. He goes, where? I go, on deck. And he goes, what? I go, I watch the kids on deck take practice swings. What are you talking about? I go, their practice swing, I can tell if they hit the ball away, they pull the ball, what type of hitter they are. Huh? I go, yeah, I just watch their swings. Because that's how I learned in the big leagues. And, we have scouting report and all that, but I learned in the minors, because we didn't have scouting report, how guys swung, how their swing was. If they were oppo guy, if they were a slap hitter, if they were a power hitter, if they were a pull hitter, they all have different swings. It's a little bit different, but you can kind of tell if you're paying attention. And they were dumbfounded. They were just like, what? I'm like, yeah. I said, we would probably struggle if the team never took swings on deck. They were just like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's all it is. I watch a kid swing, then I know exactly how to pitch to them. So, and they were just, and I'm like, and so I go, yeah, that's just years of practice, years of me learning how guys swing. And they just were like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then like pitching inside for young kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell kids all the time, and a mom got mad at me in Little League. She goes, you can't tell the kids just to hit a kid, pitching wise.
Yeah.
And I said, I never told the kid to hit him. I said, you're either going to throw inside for a perfect strike or you're going to hit the kid. But it's okay. The batter has a helmet. It's part of the game. He's going to jump out of the way. So don't have a fear of hitting him. If you hit him, smile, say sorry and smile.
Yeah.
One, you're going to be respectful. Smile so everybody thinks you're crazy. And you probably did it on purpose, but you didn't do it on purpose. I know you didn't do it on purpose. And it was funny. I did that year in my 1 year in Little League. We didn't hit a single guy. And we used to throw inside to everybody. Yeah. And the story came out because somebody asked me about, you guys pitch in, you haven't hit anybody and this and that. And I told that story, and then they kind of wrote down like, don't have a fear. Go ahead and hit somebody. That's kind of what the reporter said. Yeah. One of the moms went ape and wanted me kicked off Little League because I said I'd throw it. And I go, your team has hit 8 people and like 5 of them have been us. We haven't hit a single guy. So if I said hit somebody, don't you think my kids would have hit somebody? Yeah. I took the fear away and said, because when you're throwing inside, it's almost like, well, I don't want to hit the guy. So you'll leave it over the middle. But if you're like, well, if I hit the guy, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to throw the ball perfect. And they would. Yeah. That's what we practice on. And then it's like up to bat. If you think you're going to get hit up to bat, you're going to jump out of the way, right? Yeah. But if you don't have a fear of getting hit, you're just going to swing and hit it. So, I took the fear away. Like in Little League, this is Little League, right? 12 years old, 11, 12. If a guy swung at a pitch really high, good swing. It's okay. Because this is what happens. If you're like, little Johnny, don't swing at that pitch. Just swing at pitches down here. Then you're up to bat. What are you thinking? Don't swing at that high pitch. Don't swing at the high pitch. Pitch is right down the middle. You're just thinking, don't swing. Yeah. So I'm just like, hey, go ahead. A Little League pitcher is not going to throw 3 pitches over your head. They might throw 1 over your head, 2 over your head, and then they throw that perfect strike. If you're swinging all 3, that third one, you're going to crush. Yeah. You're going to swing and miss it too, but that's the name of the game. You're going to swing and miss sometimes. You're going to hit sometimes. So anyway. It's a little bit different coaching style, but it's just, I feel like it's the right way. And it's kind of how I was coached. But nowadays, all the coaches are like, no, you got to listen to me. I'll tell you when to swing. Don't swing until you get a strike, or, this is how you pitch, or, I'll call every pitch and trust me, you'll do really well. Yeah. I'm like, I don't call many pitches. So anyway, if they have a question, it's funny. You know how every coach gives signs?
Yeah.
So this is what I did. It was if I standed both legs down, or across my legs, or I crossed my arms. It was different pitches. But I said, guys, you can look at me if you're not sure what to throw. If you're not sure what to throw, I'm telling you, you look at me and you'd be like, oh, it's curveball, like in, or curveball away. Yeah. But you don't have to do that. You can start calling your own game. And it's funny, the first game, they kind of struggle with it a little bit because they're not used to it. Then after, it's like they feel confident because they're doing something all by themselves, and the coach is giving them confidence and believe in them that they can do it. Think about it. When somebody tells you you're not going to be a very good podcast guy, but then somebody actually says, you're doing a really good job podcasting, but you're doing it all by yourself. You feel really proud of yourself and accomplished yourself. You actually do even better than if somebody's just helping you do it, because you always have that fear. What if I don't have that co-host? Or what if I don't have that guy helping me edit? I don't know if I'm going to do as good as, they are. I know how to do it, but I'm just, you always second guess yourself. Well, what if you don't second guess yourself? Think about how much better you'd be. And that's what I try to give to kids and, young adults. And as soon as they start listening and they start believing in themselves, then the sky's the limit.
You remind me a lot of my high school coach. I played in the summers, for this. It's like a town city. It's called White Plains. And my coach's name was Marcel Galgani. He played minor league ball. I think he was with the A's. He always said his roommate was Jason Giambi. It's funny, but you remind me a lot of him just because he was the same kind of way. Like he never was trying to run the show. He was never trying to dictate. He was always trying to be the guy that would help us develop as ball players, but first and foremost as men. Like he would always tell us how to take these lessons off the field. And you can't be someone who's just relying on validation. You can't be someone who's relying on someone else to help you get along the way. Like you have to be solid in who you are. You have to be solid in your identity, and like you have to be solid in your own skill set and the faith you have in yourself. I think it's crazy that people wouldn't bring you on as a coach, and I hope someone widens up sooner rather than later, and then they can appreciate that mentality that you have. Yeah. This has been a real.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if it doesn't happen in the next 2 years, unfortunately, I'll probably go coach minor league and pro ball. And then I've heard a lot of that just is a lot of babysitting. You just write reports and stuff.
Oh, really? It's not that.
It's
that
not really a lot of
passion's
coaching in the minors. It's let the prospects play, let them develop.
Yeah.
And just kind of help the prospects. And they kind of know who. I have friends that are coaching, and they go, "We kind of know who's going to get let go next year." So if you help them out, unless they hit 500, they're getting released next year.
Yeah,
because they're just filling roles. And I'm like, that kind of stuff.
Are you only looking in Texas right now? And your son's in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, he's at Arkansas Tech right now. Yeah. I mean, right now, here's the thing. I live near Austin, Texas, and I don't really want to relocate the family somewhere unless I'm getting one of those D1 jobs that's going to pay me, $500,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Where my wife goes, okay. But I'm willing to drive a good hour or so. There's a lot of schools around here. And, just to kind of get, my feet wet and stuff like that. I know there's going to be a lot of travel, a lot of dictating and stuff like that, but it's just kind of, you're going to have to make it worth my while to leave here or make it worth my while for me to leave for 6 months and then come back home, live there, coach for 6 months and then leave. Because most coaches don't do that. They live where they're coaching. Yeah. So, but you got to make it worth my while just for my wife if you want me to leave.
No, I feel you.
So, but if it's anywhere in Austin, I have no problem driving an hour every day back and forth. And so there's a bunch of schools here, and there's some schools like high schools that are going to open up, and still hoping, praying and that opportunity. I feel like the Lord will put me in the right spot at the right time. And it's not my time, it's his time. So it sucks sometimes, but
it does suck sometimes.
Maybe I'm here to help my kid, tennis.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm here for him to beat up on me because I'm not that good. Yeah. And it makes him better. I don't know.
He works in mysterious ways, the Lord. He really does.
Yeah.
This has been a pleasure. And I want to finish on one question. There was a guy who came up while I was doing my research for this, and maybe he's not like a key player in your life, but I think like just his role fascinated me. His name was Gio Urena, and I was looking up when you were on the Rays. He was the baseball chaplain, and I thought that was such an interesting role for someone to have, because I know like there's like team psychologists nowadays that are helping guys with their mental health, but I'd never really heard of like a religious consultant, if you want to phrase it like that. And I know you came to God later on in life, so just overall, when you have someone like that helping you stay grounded, and you can take those takeaways later on to life, and now you're passing them down to your kids too, just what has it been like now having that relationship with the Lord? And I know you talked a lot about in other interviews that you've given that when he spoke to you and he told you that like you were good enough as a pitcher, when some other people were like just all caught up in you doing the slide into the mound at the All-Star game, they weren't really focusing on your pitching skills. Like you felt that love from the Lord. And
well, here's the thing. Actually, a baseball chaplain kind of brought me to the Lord somewhat. Mm-hmm. I had some teammates that, we call them religious guys.
Yeah.
And I'd always talk to them and ask them weird questions to kind of learn, because I like learning.
Yeah.
And so a chaplain, he begged me to come to chapel one day. And, because, we can't go to church. So there's, a chaplain there on Sundays. And his name is Doug Sutherland. And he dragged me in. I go, okay, I'll come in, but I'm not talking. I'm not reading. I'm not talking. He goes, okay. So I was there for a half hour, and then he goes, how was it? And I went, well, I don't know, man. Like I said, I grew up a Catholic, but Catholic basically going to church Easter and Christmas, and they speak in Latin. I got no idea what I'm doing. So not really going, just know there's a God. And I'm going to heaven because there's a God, but not really knowing anything else.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, he asked me, how was it? And I said, well, it's okay. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I think differently than everybody else. And he was like, well, what are you talking about? And I told him a couple things like, okay, I tell people all this time. So I'm like, and I'll ask you, do you think God is all knowing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. He knows everything, right?
Yeah.
He knows all.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if he knows everything, then your life is already predestined.
Mm-hmm.
It is? Then we have no free will.
We have no free will. Yeah.
So do we have free will or not?
I believe we do.
Do you think we do?
Yeah.
Then how does God know everything if we have free will and we can make our own choice? See, so now I'm making you think. And I told this Pastor Doug, and he was like, I want to have lunch with you. So we went to he flew out to Arizona. It was the next road trip or a week down the road. Mm-hmm. And we had a lunch and we started talking. And this is kind of what I brought up. I brought more stuff up. So I'll explain what I'm just teaching you, because right now you're probably like, okay, wait, do we have free will? Does he not know everything? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, God knows everything. Yes, we do have free will, but this is you can't think of a human way. You have to think of a godly way. And it's hard for us to think godly ways. So here's how it is. So God knows everything that's going to happen. The only thing he doesn't know is what choice you're going to make. So when you wake up in the morning, you have two choices. Are you going to put your right foot on the ground first? Or are you going to put the left foot on the ground first? Everything you do, you have two choices. Basically, you have a fork in the road. If I'm going to say hello or good morning, am I going to say good morning or not say anything at all? He knows if we put our right foot down, this is the path we're going to take. If we put our left foot down, this is the path we're going to take. But he doesn't know what path you're going to take. But as soon as you take that right foot down, now you have another fork in the road. So everything you do, there's probably a million forks in the road every single day. And he knows exactly what's going to happen to you every time you do it. But he doesn't know what choice you're going to make. That's our free will. Yeah. So he tries to push us, like as parents, try to push our kids. Don't stay out until 12 o'clock because you're going to really hate it before school. You're going to be really tired and groggy, stuff like that. But if you want to, go ahead. It's your choice. Don't spend your money over here because you're going to forget about 3 days later. We're going to Disneyland or wherever, and you're going to want money. Yeah. We try to mentor our kids. That's where he's trying to do it. And really, God just wants he wants to have a relationship with us. And like when I used to pray, I never prayed, God, thank you for letting me have a great outing. I always thought that was funny how pitchers would do that. Yeah. Victor Zambrano was the only one that prayed that, did the cross and kissed to the Lord if he did good or bad. And, I respected that because guys would do it every time they'd get a hit. And I think that's, excuse my French, BS, because really, you should pray that, thank you, Lord, for giving me the opportunity to play this game. That's it. Not, thanks for me getting that hit. So did you get a hit or did he get a hit? And then did he help you strike out because you didn't thank him for it? Like, come on. Yeah. So stop praising him for the good things. Praise him for what he wants to be praised for and just the opportunity. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to let me do my scouting report and work out and prepare myself for this game. Yeah. Whatever happens is the game. I feel like it's in my hands, but at the end of the day, he's going to teach me something if I do well or do bad. And I'll give you an example. There's one game I blew the save, and I think we ended up winning the game anyway. And I was upset. Man, I wanted to destroy my locker. I was really frustrated, right? Yeah. Well, 2 days later, one of my teammates came to me, a younger guy, and said, hey, I've kind of learned a lot from you or something like that. And it was maybe after Bible study, he told me, and I said, what are you talking about? He's like, I've always had trouble if I don't pitch well. And then you go and don't pitch well. You stood up there for the press. you did everything, and it was like you didn't throw, a temper tantrum, you didn't destroy your locker like a lot of guys did. You throw your glove down. And I go, well, it wasn't going to help me. And I need to be responsible for the press because they're going to be there. They're going to ask me questions. And trust me, I was upset, but I was like, like we ended up winning the game, and that's the most important. So I was upset I didn't do good things personally, but I was that the team won.
Yeah.
And he goes, but that just taught me, like, hey, even the best in the game has bad days, and it's okay. And I didn't even realize I taught him that. So that I look back and go, I blew that game, and the way I acted taught somebody else how to react after a game. And I was so proud of myself, but kind of like, man, I wish I would have known that. But I found out, a couple of days later, like, it's not in my time, it's in the Lord's time. So when I say we try to make God, we try to think like God, we can't. We have to think like a God would think. Yeah. Well, he, like everybody goes, well, he puts bad things in our life. No, we allow bad things to happen. Think about it. You allow bad things to happen. As a kid, your mom or dad says, don't touch that hot, that hot stove. But we want to do it anyway, because we think it's so cool or funny or something like that. So we allow, we have people telling us don't do it, but we allow people, we're like, no, I'll be fine. She won't break my heart or something like that. Or I'll get away with, stealing a candy bar or something like that. But the regret, you're going to live with that. So, yeah. And it's funny because occasionally, like after baseball, a lot of people thought I was going to become a pastor. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I used to speak at some churches. And then I will tell you, I got really betrayed from a church. So just out there, guys, church isn't perfect. No. Church is where you go and learn. And it's a great place to fellowship. But really, if you want to fellowship, you fellowship with your neighbors, your friends. That's what makes you stronger. It's not going to church. If church makes you feel good, probably not going for the right reasons. Amen. You need to open the Bible yourself. Even if it's funny, and I'll tell your listeners this. If you open up the Bible, flip through it. This is how I started. Flip through it, stop on a page, read one verse, just do it every day. Something different every day or every other day. You'll find out that one of the verses you read will help you 3 or 4 days down the road or a week down the road. Or you'll start talking to somebody and you'll be like, in the Bible, it says blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, I haven't read the whole damn thing yet. No. But I'm just reading a little bit this. And how is reading one thing helping me a week later? It's amazing how it does. Because it's basically a playbook of how to live life and how to do things. But I love the Bible because the Bible is so gray. I could read one verse. You could read the same verse.
Two different
And
meanings.
A year from now, we could read the same verse and it'll mean something different to you and to me both times we read it.
Yep.
And that's what I love about it. But people love to say the Bible is black and white. It's not black and white. And you have to realize, and I was if a baseball didn't work out, I was going to be a history teacher. You have to understand, like it says, everybody says, wives submit to your husbands. Well, submit was like, obey was back in the day. What did submitting mean? It was like, well, your husband's the leader, that should be, but really, let me put it to modern days. Well, if you're driving in a car and your husband's driving and you're sitting in the passenger seat, if you help him turn, turn here, turn there to get to the destination, your pilot's going to do great. But if your co-pilot, the wife is saying, you idiot, you should turn left, not right here. Well, the pilot's not going to ask questions because he doesn't want to be belittled and be down. Mm-hmm. So you got to work as a team. You got to work as together, and everybody has their own roles. And it's actually more powerful, if you think about it, to be behind the scenes and help somebody lead than be in front of the camera. Who's more powerful? The person behind the scenes editing or the person on camera talking? It's the person editing because they could make the volume higher, lower, they could change this, they could change that. But people read it as black and white, and it's funny because like you got to really read the Bible. And I just want to say this, everybody says, or the Bible, it says, husbands, love your wife like Jesus loved the church, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you're married, Tom, are you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, good. But here's the thing. I'll tell you this. So love your wife like Jesus loved the church, right? That's a good thing, right? And he
Yeah.
loved. Who killed Jesus?
Judas. Oh, Pontius
Well,
Pilate, Jesus.
pretty
And
much
Judas.
the church.
Yeah.
The church made Pontius Pilate like, hey, he's bad on the Sabbath, blah, blah, blah. So the church killed him, and Jesus loved him for it. So your wife's going to kill you, and you have to be like, okay, that's awesome. So, but I can get more into it, but we're not talking about marriage or relationships right now. But it's funny if you actually really think about it and you really get into it. It's so much a gray area. You can work with it and go, oh, okay, that's what it means to love somebody. They're going to hurt you the most, but you're still going to be there for them. And as soon as you have kids or anybody has kids, you're going to understand that really soon.
Yeah.
As soon as you have kids, they hurt you the deepest, the hardest, but you never stop loving them.